I'm Max. I'm one of the founders of Make You Local, and I will be your host here today. Launching a web shop in a new country has never been easier than it is today. We have a lot of collective knowledge. Companies like Make You Local, colleagues in the industry, and probably yourself have some experience with setting up a web shop abroad. And that is a really good thing. But it also has a backside. And that means that due to all the knowledge, due to the platforms we have that are prepared for international expansion, the payment methods, logistic methods that are ready for it, that we will all do it. So the competition in the countries you launch in will be quite intense. So that also means that to succeed in a new country, you need to learn from the best. And that's why we're here today. Later, we will speak to Jens from ByAkra and listen to their international journey. And I look very much forward to that. So let's get started. And I will do a short introduction. So I'll share some slides with you. I will begin with talking a little bit about some of the initial steps you need to do, selecting the right country, and the first important steps you need to go through. And then we will invite Jens into the room and discuss how they actually approach this and get some real life experience into the discussion. Let's go forward. Make You Local, just a brief introduction. We work with international e-commerce. We've done that for 14 years. We help with local customer service. We help with translations, localization of web shops, and also marketing. And you can say what we bring to the table for our clients is two things mainly. It's local native e-commerce specialists that can help you and your web shop perform. And it is technology that you can tap into. So you don't have to do your own investments in expensive technology, and you don't have to have your own people hired to manage these systems. So that's the two things that our business is based on today. We have been around for some time. We work with a lot of clients. This is some of the bigger ones, and some of them you might know. Sephora, Leewood, Pilgrim, Skechers are well-known brands. But we also work with a lot of smaller companies because on day one in a new country, they are all the same size and they have the same needs for offering a competitive, trustworthy web shop in a new country. We are a little bit more than 100 people, and we, on a daily basis, operate 250 web shops across Europe. And across Europe means that we cover most countries, mainly ourselves with internal staff hired by us, but a few of the markets we do with partners that we have worked with for a long time. So if you consider expanding in Europe, I'm sure we can find a way to help you. And then selecting the country, the most important thing when you go abroad, I think. What are the criteria you should go for? Is it the biggest one, where you only need a fraction of the population to buy from you and you're all good? Is it the country that is most similar to your own, where you think your approach, your products will fit well? Or is it the market closest to you, so you can use your existing warehouse and logistic providers and stuff like that? So that's some of the things that my clients bring up and we talk about when discussing where to start. I think these are good concerns or considerations. I think it starts somewhere else. The market with the best brand recognition is probably the market where you will do best. So if you sell a product or are a brand that are well known in other countries, maybe through resellers or others, that's probably the markets where you, at the lowest cost and in shortest time, can create a profitable business. Because this is the difficult part. Also, when you have such a strong competition, creating awareness in a market is the challenge. It is not like 5-10 years ago where the challenge was to figure out how should the web shop look in the Netherlands to actually perform well. Well, we can figure that out quite easy now. Now the challenge is, how do I navigate in the competitive landscape, offering the right products for the right people, targeting them the right way in that market. All right, so brand recognition. Besides that, there's a few things that impact this a lot. First of all, and that's a kind of a basic thing, is my product relevant at all in that country? And for many of us, it's not an issue, but you could, for instance, sell equipment for a specific sport like ice hockey. Then there's countries that are really good for you, and there are definitely countries where ice hockey is not really having a market. So that's the first thing you should check. Then there can be some distance that plays in here. If you are in an industry where delivery time is critical, then of course the further away from your warehouse, the more difficult it will be to compete on that exact thing. So I would also always consider, do I need to create an extra warehouse with all the cost and cash flow requirements that will create? One market where that sometimes happens is in the UK, because, well, it's an island, so it's hard to deliver next day on an island like that. Finally, I would always look at competition. One thing is that there is a good market for your product, that you can deliver on time, but who are the competitors? Who's taking all the customers today? And if you benchmark your business and your products and your prices and your approach against the good local competitors, do you then see it to be realistic to win clients, to take market shares from these competitors? We often do what we call a market entry report, where we look at many different things, but one of the most important things of that is actually looking at the 3, 4, 5 biggest competitors in that market and try to figure out how are they running their business and where is the position that we can take with it together with this client. So market entry report is a good place to start if you want to understand the competition in your market. And then the final thing in market selection, I always encourage people to do the math, trying to figure out if I can make money in this market. Because one thing is you can see that I can compete on prices, I can compete in the marketing environment, but what will my profit be for every order? IPO, it's an acronym for income per order in this case. And what I always encourage companies to do is to do the math for the whole market. What are the average order size, the value of the basket? What are the costs in logistics, payments, customer service, return handling, all these things? And then you get a profit per order. And let's say you have a basket size of 150 euros and you have a profit per order at 20 euros. And then you do the same for the 1, 2, 3 markets you look at and try to figure out, is the profit better in some of these markets than in my home market? So you actually take your decision based on these things as well, because there are really differences. It can be the delivery costs that are higher, it's another country. But it can also be that the average basket size in that market is typical 20-25% lower, and then it might be very, very difficult to make money for a company from abroad. So this is good basic work to do before you make your final selection. Good. I think I just want to mention 4 steps that I think is really good to take into consideration and before we move on to Jens. First, understand the competition. I mentioned it before. Try to see who are you up against. Plan a friction-free customer journey. With this, I mean that if you go into a new market, Europe will be an unknown web shop. And we are, as consumers, not very patient. We don't like changes. So when we get into a new web shop, and if they also ask us to pay in a different way, to read another language, to get delivered by another logistic company that we prefer or are used to, there's a good chance at least some of them will leave the basket and find another place to place their order. So I would be careful about going outside the expectations in a new market with my web shop and the customer journey as a whole. Then, of course, understanding the marketing challenge. This is both how you're going to do it, but it's also what is the budget? What is the realistic budget for actually creating momentum in this market? Getting to the level of revenue that you think is the first milestone for you in a new market. That's a good exercise to do. It's not about launching; it's actually about getting some customers and get a business that at least is past the break-even point and in a profitable area. And then the last thing I encourage companies to do is plan for. Be careful with setting your sales expectations too high. Is maybe a better way to use it. I'm a little bit more dramatic in the text, but my point is if you put your expectations low, then you also give yourself time to make mistakes, find your way around in new market, test different things, and most important, when you start getting orders, you will really be happy for them. And there's a huge difference between being ahead of budget and behind, also in the organization you work in. So try to be realistic. When you started in your home market, it was probably with a much more careful forecast than we tend to do when we go into a new market. So try to plan carefully and not being too optimistic on the sales. It is difficult. It's a new country. It's new competitors. There's a lot of things to learn. Yeah. Okay. I think I will invite Jens into the room now, and then we'll see if he has done it totally different from what I have done, or what we encourage people to do. So Jens, would you care to join? Now it's always exciting to see if he's still here or he fell asleep.
Yeah.
He was here. Great.
Yeah. I just had to press some buttons with video and microphone and everything. So
perfect. Welcome, Jens. I look forward to this. I know you've done a lot of interesting things over the last years with BioIkra, so it's going to be exciting. And I was just thinking, well, I expect that there is a flow of challenges every day, also in your world.
Yeah, sure. So as I said yesterday, it's a good thing that you scheduled this a couple of months ago when the calendar was all empty and optimism was high for what was going to happen in 2 months' time. Right now we're launching 5 new rollator colors. We're actually going to have a pink rollator and a gold rollator.
Nice. Yeah.
We're going to have a big conversion optimization project kicking off soon.
Nice.
And also we are very much on Amazon. That needs a lot of optimization. We just, we've been doing the best we could, and now we're trying to get an agency to pick up the level. And Japan has requested some online assistance. And
nice.
Just yesterday,
we'll get back to that.
My COO wanted to say, let's go on Amazon in India.
Nice. So if
I don't know if you did your process on that one, Max. I just think it sounded like an interesting market. Let's go.
Yeah. Cool. So if you should mention one thing that takes up most of your headspace right now, what is the biggest concern or thing you're spending time on right now?
I think it's actually the conversion optimization. We had
optimizing output in the markets you're already in.
Yeah, just the performance on our website and our web shop to get more orders from all the media costs we're spending. We have been having so much speed in the last couple of years that sometimes you just have to go back and have a look at what is it that we really did and try to make it better, more profitable.
I was thinking, now you said India, maybe we should hook onto that a little bit, because now your CEO said India is, I think that's a great idea, but what are you then, how are you filtering this? What are the things that you might check up on before you do it? When you look at a new market, not India in particular, but new markets, what are the things that you think is important for you before you?
Well, when it came to India, I said to her the first time, she said, Jens, let's do India. I said, okay, just give me a distribution solution and a customer service solution. Then let's work on it when you have those ready. Yeah. And I thought it would have taken her a year, but she just found some partners that were able to handle that, and so that's what you're saying is that with customer service solved, with logistics solved, you can do it. Well, we're going through Amazon.
Yeah,
100% for Amazon. We're not making an Indian site. And the partners are actually, so we're shipping in a container with rollators to India, Amazon. So everything will be be through Amazon on that behalf. So yeah, we ship a container and we'll put up some listings and some marketing, and let's see how it goes.
Good. Interesting. That's going to be exciting to follow.
We're not really doing your process on that one, Max, but sometimes I think the process is really great, but sometimes, you know, ideas are just born from top level that could be cool, and then it's just almost straight to execution and just see how it goes without investing too hardcore in it.
Yeah. Now India might be a little bit off the map for some of us, but if we look at Europe, what would you then consider if you should open a new market tomorrow? What would you then look for?
Well, no, it depends on if it's online or through our distributors and retailers.
I think we should here take your plan to sell directly to consumers.
Yeah. Then usually we do a keyword analysis in regards of volume in searches. That's the primarily thing to look at. And here we look at the broad terms, but we especially look at terms like lightweight rollators or other search words that indicate a more, let's say, educated search than just searching for a rollator. Because usually we have an experience that if we get those in volume, we can sell something on these markets. And they also usually also indicates what is the stigma size of the market. We are very much dependent on, is this a product that people really don't want to have, or just something that they really don't want to have? That sort of sets the scale on how hard will it be, how much effort do we have to put into branding and educating the market and trying to destigmatize the user's view. Also, we look at population. So more of the demographics. We look for the size of the population, the age range of the population. Even though it's only 60% that of the people who use mobility aids are above 60, it's still important. We look at online readiness, and we look at the wealth, since our rollators are the most expensive on the market.
Yeah, maybe because I think I was jumping this slide when we started the presentation. Maybe you should just spend 2 minutes talking a little bit about what is I think everybody knows we're selling rollators here, but what is the difference between what you try to do and what the rest of the market is doing?
Well, we're really all about trying to reducing the stigma around the use of mobility aids. It is something that is highly stigmatized, and that means that you don't get a mobility aid until you are forced. And therefore, we have created products that looks great, but also they're designed to improve your life quality, both physically but also mentally, that you actually get out of the house and you keep on living and have experiences. That is the huge difference that Bioeker is trying to do. I don't know if many people know Bioeker, but right now we are a Danish company, 18 people employed. We're going to sell about 90 million kroner this year. Half of it is e-com, and only 2% of our entire revenue is in Denmark.
All right, cool. That was a good heads up on that part. Markets are always interesting because, we all think about it in different ways. But one thing I noticed when I just visit your website, it was the Japanese side you have. So how did you end up there? And is that different from going to Germany?
It is very different. I'm going to Japan in December just to see what it's like on a personal level. But we always knew that we were going to do anything in Japan, we needed a local asset. So we have an agent there who's a bit. It's a bit of a hybrid between an employee and a freelance agent, which is a native Japanese. And we also have an investor living in Japan who's helping, which is a Dane that speaks Japanese. So there's a lot of help there. And it's actually the reason why we have the Japanese website is that they requested some online help from Bioeca headquarters. So we thought that the best way to sort of get the branding effect was to create a copy of our Japanese website and translate it, and then our agent, he will handle the webshop orders in his webshop.
Okay. So you ended up there because you had a distributor person or kind of that, and you have an investor. It was not like you deliberately looked at a world map and said, Japan, that's where we're going.
I think actually that the initial entry, and that's 5 or 6 years ago. So we've been in Japan for 5 or 6 years through that agent, and I think that was the strategy back then, that you took all key markets and you tried to find a distributor.
Okay, good.
But the process is sometimes slowly going forward.
Yeah. All right. I think we should speak a little bit about your US sales, because US is of course a huge market, and it's on many thoughts as well. So I know you're doing quite okay in UK, but maybe you could tell a little bit about how you started and how you're doing now.
Yeah, well, right now, our 60% of our online revenue is from the US market, but it's a great success in that respect. But it also comes on the lack of success of actually getting into the brick and mortars.
All right.
So where there are basically just two places. If you want a Bioeca rollator, you can buy it on Bioeca Amazon, or you can buy on Bioeca webshop, or you can buy other. One of our distributors has a direct sales through Amazon as well. So it's mostly online based to get our rollators, and that will of course affect our numbers.
How is the split between Amazon and your own webshop today in US?
One more time, Max.
What is the split between Amazon sales and direct sales from your own webshop?
I think it's around half and half now.
Okay, so it's not like Amazon can do it alone or the webshop can do it alone. It is actually a synergies between these platforms, I would assume.
And especially after we started a massive meta ad campaign, we can see that that really, you know, they started to say, hey, I want to buy Bioeca rollator. They might have visited our website, but the preferred channel to buy is Amazon. So we see a lot of more searches for our product through Amazon and purchases through there.
Okay. Yeah.
We started to turn down some of the branding campaign in May and June, and immediately Amazon sales just fell down.
So you from your social media advertising, you sent the visitors to your website.
Yeah.
And then they end up in Amazon, some of them anyway. Are you linking directly to Amazon from your web shop in the US?
No.
Or no? Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right.
And so it's basically that that's our belief, that they say, hey, that's a really interesting product. Maybe I can just buy it on Amazon, which is my preferred shop.
Yeah, or maybe in a market where Amazon has such a huge position, they expect that they can buy it there as well.
Sure.
It's not, that's a natural thing for them, maybe. Okay, so, but are you still trying to get into brick and mortar in the US?
Yes, I think we really would like to, but we haven't had an agreement, actually an exclusive agreement with the largest distributor of these products. But of course, we were just a small brand among 45,000 other products, and some of them produced by themselves. So you know, it really never got that traction. They just sold our products to Amazon, and that was basically it. but we have tried to get salespeople to work for us and a lot of things. But you know, hiring a salesperson in Scandinavia can be hard enough to find. I think every organization has tried hiring salespeople, and at the job interview, many of them are always great at selling themselves, but sometimes not so much selling the product. In the States, you can multiply that by 10. You know, every American is, I'm being a bit, you know, being a little bit generalistic here, but every American is very great at promoting themselves and telling how great everything will be. And there's a really thick layer of bullshit that sometimes takes a lot of time for us Scandinavians to see through. Okay. So we have great expectations, and then nothing really happens when it's time to do business.
Okay. All right. Another, maybe the last question about the US then. Did you adapt your marketing or products or anything to the US market, or did you go with the same approach as you did in Europe?
Same approach.
Okay, basically. So no changes there, no.
Yeah, and that is a thing we have huge success with when we're internationalizing, is actually that we don't do markets, we do projects. And that means that if we do Google ads, we do Google ads on all the markets. And we do meta ads on all the markets.
Yeah.
And that has really worked for us to dedicate ourselves with limited manpower.
Yeah, well, that's a nice approach, I think, because of course you would multiply the projects with 6, 7 every time otherwise if you didn't do it that way. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the more general thing. So do you have a launch plan for your marketing in a new country? Do you have this is how we approach it, or do you go out, you know, with a big bang, or is it more like trial and error, or what is your approach?
Well, as I just was all about, we have these key markets, and we think we right now have the most in Western Europe, and West and North America. We have the markets we really want to go into, and then we do the projects. But for instance, we are not in Norway, we're not in Sweden dedicated, and if we were going to go there, I think we would start by creating the language edition on the website, and we would start to do Google ads with focus on the more narrow keywords. And I think we'd also put the basic social media into running it.
But you would balance investment with sales, or you don't believe in, now we make a big push to build up some brand awareness?
No, that is not. I'm not saying it won't work. I don't think that's the way we do things. We try to get in and get some data, and then we can see, okay, it's converting, let's say 0.3%, for instance.
Yeah.
And okay, we can make a business case on that. We know we are not perfectly set up in all areas. Okay, so we can improve, and we will double our revenue here, but then we know where the market is at.
Okay. But that makes good sense. I think, sometimes the big bang will work. The problem is not these times. The times is when it's not working and you've spent 1 million kroner or 100,000 euros and you didn't get anything out of it, of course. Okay. You're in 7 markets. Some of them you've been in for some years.
Yeah.
Are you changing your approach? Now we have launched, now we have some momentum. Are you then going into another phase in the way you operate, or do you have a plan for that? Or is it more like one market at a time, you look at it, what do we need to do here?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically more that we have a look at it and say, hey, we've done these projects. Now we are going, for instance, for the conversion rate optimization.
Yeah.
And I think it has the strengths we just talked about the limited manpower and able to get economies of scale in what you do. You're much more interesting for an agency working on all the countries and all the platforms. If you hire an agency, for instance, then you become a bigger client. But I think the drawbacks is that that all our markets or our language editions, they're basically, and again we're getting a bit rough on the edges. Basically, they're translations, so they don't take that so much into account that it's a local edition.
No.
Of it, and I think there are much value here, but it's also very project heavy to just work on one page at a time. So
but I also think
we need to get the organization with maybe when we start to get country managers in our organizations, I think it will be realistic to be more local.
I think it's like you said, you have the projects and you do them across countries now because that makes them profitable. But I guess when a market becomes more and more mature, has more and more volume, then you can make a profitable project isolated to a country, I guess. If it's because there is some special things, maybe there is special competitors and unique selling points you need to address. So I guess at some point it would make sense.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. One of the things that we often forget to talk about is all the things that needs to be done when we have sold a project. So the logistics, the after-sales service, all these problems. This part taking up a lot of time in your organization?
Not so much as it would in many other organizations, I think, and it's because we're a bit blessed with that we have an expensive product. A rollator is around 600 euros, and we have a good margin on it, and it's not too heavy either. So even if you're sending this from Europe to the States, you will still have a good margin in it. So we're not forced to be super efficient on freight and logistics, and also our clients. I think they're a bit more patient with delivery times than most people are. But of course, there are things like custom barriers and working with multicultural storage facility and all the freight, shipment companies. Yeah, that is a challenge. I'm just blessed that it's not so much on my desk as it is on someone else. But I can see that they are having challenges as well.
Yeah, I would assume that because every time you add a country, you have a new problem. You can't, in the exact same way, at least generalize across all countries. Complaints, returns is also something that sometimes takes a lot of energy in international e-commerce. I would assume you don't have a lot of returns, but I guess you sometimes have complaints or things you need to fix if there's a scratch or something that breaks. But that's not different from doing it in one country, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think every company thinks they have too many complaints and too many returns, but we are of course not a fashion company when it comes to returns, but we have quite a few. It's not something that is much on my desk either, but we only have two storage facilities. We have one in the United States, and we have one in the Netherlands. And all returns and all distribution is in and out of those. So and it works. I think it works great. We don't get that many complaints about it.
Oh. All right. Another kind of simple question maybe, but the legal part, it's also something we spend energy on sometimes, but is that something that you're concerned about? Do our terms and conditions match the local country, warranty, stuff like that?
I think we're more like, let's go, and then we have a great partner called Makes You Local that will look through our sales agreements. Again, I'm blessed with that. It's not much on my desk, but I can see that our COO and finance manager, they have challenges on a regular basis, especially in the US.
Yeah.
After we just in late 23, we got a US-based company, and then many more rules apply. And especially reporting and collecting sales tax is a nightmare because they have very different tax rates dependent on state, but in some states it's also on zip code level. So you can have in one state you can have like 40 different tax rates, and they sometimes like to change them every 3 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, good. Lots of great answers. Jens, is there something in particular you would highlight, saying, well, this is something everybody should pay attention to when they consider going abroad? Or maybe not pay attention to, but just do it.
I think that if you're going to sell in Europe or in the States, you have to know about Amazon, and you have to get a skill set regarding this. You can see that Vivian asked us, do we use FBA, which is that Amazon do the entire fulfillment process? And yes, we do that, and I will say it's highly recommended because Amazon is also a very good way to test one of the great markets. For instance, if you're thinking about going to Germany, then I think you should try to go to Amazon first to see how will your product compete with others similar products, where you eliminate all insecurities about, is my web shop German enough? Will they trust my shop? Because you're doing business through Amazon, and therefore you're equal in those sense. So I think that's a very important thing to do when you go to the UK, when you go to Germany, when you go to the US. You need to go Amazon as well.
At least the marketplace that are relevant for your industry, because there's of course differences in which marketplaces you would go on, I would assume. Okay, good learnings. Thank you, Jens. It was a pleasure having you here, and I also hope that all your participants got some tips and tricks out of it. This was today's webinar. We will have a few others coming up the following weeks. We'll have specific country-specific webinars about Norway, I think about Germany, and maybe also the UK. So that could be a good next step if this is some of the countries you consider. And now Jens disappeared, but I know he'll probably be listening. I would just, again, big thank you to you for participating. And well, I just wish all of you a really good day. We will share the webinar. We'll also answer any other questions we received that we didn't answer throughout the webinar. Have a great day.